Would you chant it for us and tell us whatever story there is to tell about the creation of that?
Sure. Yeah. Do you want me to chant any chant, or
No, that chant.
Thou art my life, thou art...
No, I am thee, Lord, I am thee.
Oh.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, but I'm not sure I can play it. I don't think I can play it. Okay, you play it and I'll sing it. So I'll tell you the story.
So this
while
was
she's
just
preparing.
a ploy for you to play this chant?
Yes.
Saranya, did you hear what Devi said?
A ploy for you to be able to play this chant. So I wrote this many years ago, and it was during the time that Devi and I, believe it or not, we were teaching a 3-month-long yoga teacher training course. And so we did it for 2 or 3 years at the meditation retreat. And so I wrote this chant during that time, and the words are, I am thee, Lord, I am thee, thou art me, Lord, thou art me. I am thee, Lord, I am thee, wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. So the sense that whatever we are, we're this small section of something much greater, of our infinite nature.
And now our music section, Saranya is going to play it.
Right.
Okay, now, the question was, I'm doing it correctly.
Oh, okay.
So you can tell me if I'm not.
All right.
Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. I am thee, Lord, I am thee. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. I am
Perfect.
And so much better than if I'd done it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was
thank you.
lovely.
Yeah, it's like having an old friend that you haven't seen for a long time.
Saranya or the chant?
Both.
In this case.
I've got a quickie. I'm Karen, and I might have asked this last time you came, but it bears repeating. How do you guys keep your energy level as high as you do? I aspire, and I'm not at your years yet, and I have, ever since I've known you, you guys have had an astonishing amount of energy. So we'd love to hear your secrets.
Could you all hear that?
Yeah. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
I can start. We don't think about ourselves very much. We just kind of think what needs to be done. And the more you do that, the more you just realize you're being carried along. Like Jyotish mentioned, I think yesterday, we've just finished writing our 500th blog. We've been writing them weekly for 10 years. And that's in the middle of traveling all over the place. And when we were in Italy, we got in Assisi last fall, we got COVID. But often it's like whoever's week it is, like the last blog I wrote, I knew I had to get it done before we left on this trip. And I just sat down, I said, Master, there's nothing here. I have no idea, not one idea. Sit down, just sit down. And then this thought came. And so it's like the more no resistance. You just get the resistance out of the way. And you just say, I want to do this. I want to try to serve people in the best way I can. I want to, keep a nice schedule and respond to people's requests and so forth. So, a lot of it is just getting rid of resistance, being willing to do what's ever asked of you. During Inner Renewal Week, some of you were there, some of the older members told stories, one Maria McSweeney, one Parvati, about things that Swami had asked them to do in the early years. And it was kind of amazing and a little bit outrageous things he would ask them to do. And they just said, yes, of course. And they did it, and then you look at them now. So it's like that willingness. And another thing too, and we both work on this, to get rid of in the Gita, they call it the carping spirit. It's so easy to say, well, this is wrong, and this is what's wrong with this person, and this is what's wrong with this situation. It drains your energy. Just try to see the best and the highest in every person, in every situation. Just like Swami getting dialysis, just saying I look like a plate of spaghetti, and just to see the best in each situation. And that also gives you energy, because God's energy is a constant stream of light and joy. And if we get on that stream, it's like we're swimming with the current instead of against the current. So if you get rid of the resistance, try to swim in attunement. And then on a practical level, we work on our energy. We energize every single day. We try to do yoga posture several times a week. And Mahamudra, we watch what we eat. We try to walk every day if it's not snowing or raining. And so we try to do things that are healthful as well for the body. And then we try to laugh a lot. We really, very consciously try to make each other laugh, because it just lifts the spirits. And we try to do something fun every day, even if it's a little thing. So it's a lifestyle of living in a flow of energy. It's just getting rid of resistance, getting rid of judgment, just trying to see the world as God sees it, and love the world as God loves the world. And
Yeah, I'll maybe expand on that a little bit. Our teachings say that the greater the willingness, the greater the flow of energy. And so that's the basic key, is the willingness. So you have to be willing to do what's asked of you, or what you feel is right. But you can overthink that. You don't have to be, if you're going to go for, let's say that you're training for a marathon, and you know that today you are needing to do a 10-mile run. Well, if you think, oh my God, 10 miles, I'm going to have to slog through that. And you build up all this resistance, and that blocks the flow of energy. Basically, you really only need to be willing for about 5 minutes. So if you're willing to say, yes, I'm going to go for a run, and you get out the door and you run for 2 minutes, then the rest takes care of itself. And you forget about yourself, and then your mind is on finishing the 10-mile run. And it just takes care of itself. So it is with our life, with whatever we're asked to do. The push through, the energy, the willpower part of the willingness only needs to take place for that initial phase. And once that is done, then the rest takes care of itself. But also, as Devi was implying with the blog, once you say, yes, I'm going to do this, I'll sit down, then there is a power that comes, and it's not like woo-woo, some magical power. It flows through your mind, it flows through your actions, whatever. But you have to have enough willingness to start the process flowing. Kind of like a tap water, you know? You can stand in front of the sink for an hour saying, I don't have the energy to turn the tap on. I can't make that water flow through the pipes. Well, you don't have to. It takes minimal energy and then the flow happens. So it's very helpful to understand the scope of how much willingness is involved. On the other hand, without that initial willingness, the flow won't come. And so the bigger danger is, as Devi said, overcoming the carping spirit. The bigger danger is getting into a habit pattern of looking at the negative side of things, of how hard it's going to be or how unwilling you are to do it or whatever. So it's really not that hard to do, but it takes persistence and it takes enough willingness to get the process started.
And, you know, one last thought, because this is something we all carry with us. Don't be afraid to fail. I think a lot of us block our energy because we think, oh, I'm not good at that, oh, and then we shut down the flow of energy. But Swamiji always pushed us in the deep end of the pool. You know, like, I can't do that. Well, you're going to, you know, and then you end up doing it, and maybe somebody else could do it better, but it was okay. And then you learn to not be afraid, to be a fool, to be a failure. You just say, well, I did the best I can. And say what Swami said to you when he asked you to teach the advanced course.
Oh, yes. The first course I ever taught on my own. So I started taking classes from Swami in probably March or April of 1967. And so I took a series of classes. In those days, he taught 6 weeks, so he would teach in San Francisco, and then he would teach in Palo Alto, somewhere here, and maybe teach North Bay and Marin County and Sacramento. So he kind of went from place to place, but he always taught this basic 6-week course. And it would be yoga postures for an hour, and then there would be a little break for people to get food, and then there would be a course in meditation. So basically our how to meditate course, and with a little break in between. You could take either one or the other, or both together. Well, I took the first course after I met him. I took the first course and went through the 6 weeks. But because he was traveling around, I was really attracted to this life, to doing everything I could to meditate primarily. But I was also really enjoyed doing the yoga postures in those days. Anyway, I was living in San Francisco. The next time he came back to San Francisco, which was probably 3 or 4 months later, I took the course again. And then the third time he offered it in San Francisco, I took it again. But it was the same course. It was more just being with him. Well, then, during that third time, he asked whether people would like an advanced course. And everybody said, yes, we would love that. And so he set up to do an advanced course. By this time, because I was a repeat offender, he was having me help out. So I would sit at the door and I would take people's money. And he had a record that he sold and a couple of books, so I'd sell those and help however I could. Anyway, so when the time came for the course itself to happen, only 6 people showed up. And Swami was used to giving classes to 30, 40, 50 people at each night, and that was how he was earning the money to pay for the land that became the Ananda meditation retreat. So he just said, you know, I don't have time basically to dedicate a whole night for 6 people. So will you take this course?
Teach this.
Teach this course. And I said, but Swami, I've never had an advanced course. He said, oh, that doesn't matter. Just do the same postures and hold them a little longer. And so that's where I started. Of course, I built from there. But again, Swami there was an aura about him where if you had any willingness at all, there was no question about saying no. You just did what he asked. And those who weren't able to say yes in that highly magnetic field, they never lasted at Ananda anyway.
But also by saying yes, and even if you think you're going to fail, we need to realize that the blessing in that. Even if you fail, it doesn't matter. If you tried, you got something out of it. And when we have a grown son, and when he was really a few months old, Swamiji asked me, will you teach a course on spiritual parenting? And, you know, I had a 3-month-old son. I didn't know much. And I said, Swami, really all I know at this point is that you don't sleep very much. And he kind of laughed and he said, oh, okay, well, you go ahead and teach the course. But what he was saying, and it took me, in my foolishness, took me a long time to realize, you're a parent now. Why don't you study what Master said about raising children? And that's how I got my training. But it was like him showing me how to do it. And so, again, understand that everything we undertake with openness and willingness, and even if we fall flat on our face, and believe me, we all have. I'll tell you a story in a moment about falling flat on your face, but you just gain something from it. And at one point, when we were teaching the yoga teacher training course, there was a big yoga convention in Colorado, in something Springs,
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs, yeah, it was a college town. And there were hundreds of yoga teachers and yoga students. And at this time, Swami had created a slideshow, very beautiful slideshow with pictures he had taken in the Holy Land to go with the oratorio. And so we would take this around, maybe some of you remember seeing it, and there would be a recording of the oratorio, and there were these beautiful pictures.
Dual slides that would, with a mechanism that kind of faded one in and then faded the next and switched.
It was quite a lovely presentation, but the mechanism rarely worked properly. And so for some reason, they invited us to have the Saturday night entertainment for the whole group. And we were going to show this slideshow of the oratorio. And so it was a big auditorium, and there were a lot of people in there. And the thing started, and it would go for one slide, and then it would freeze. And so, for example, the recording was singing Mother of Wisdom, and the whole time it was frozen on a picture of a goat.
Goat reaching up and eating a leaf out of a tree.
And the whole and we could hear the door. It was dark because it was a slideshow. But we could hear the door opening, closing, opening, because people were just leaving and leaving and leaving. Finally, it was over, and we turned around. It had started out with several hundred people. There were like 3 people left. And afterwards, a woman came up to me, and she was crying, and she said, oh, that was such a marvelous experience for me. you help me to accept my own failure. And I thought, well, whatever it takes, you know. But we, you know, we all fall flat on our face. And it was fun. It was fun. I mean, it was so bizarre, but we did it. Okay.
Swami, too, loved to tell the story about, he went, I can't even remember where the town was, but this woman was, he was still in SRF and he was one of the teachers. This woman was supposed to set up a big lecture, but when he actually looked into it, she had put a little ad in the newspaper saying, meeting for SRF members. Only.
Yeah.
And there were only 4 SRF members in the town, and he was supposed to have the big public lecture. So anyways, as the lecture started, there were 5 people because one of the members had dragged a friend to them. And so he was giving his talk, and there was one man in the front row looking at his watch, and he would shake it to see if it was actually working. And then somebody, the hostess, said, well, a lot more people would have come, sir, except that this was the night that Gaylord Hauser, who was a teacher that taught courses on health and well-being. Gaylord Hauser was talking, and one of them turned, that was tonight? Oh my God, I missed it. And so Swami, with great joy, used to tell about his grand failure. But yeah, as Devi said, we just, if your mind is on success, then that first step out the door probably won't happen because you'll block yourself, because you never start out with success. Okay.
We need the mic for you to
mic.
stir.
Did you want to go? You go
No.
first, James.
You're next.
Okay.
So I'm a big advocate of community,
For what?
for community.
Uh-huh.
I'm living in community, and when I have things I am having a hard time with, I lean on what I call my spiritual elders, Shantiman, Chidambarji, lots of others. And always I come out feeling better, or at least it helped tremendously. So my question is, who do you ask? Who do you look to for guidance?
Well, you know, thank you. That's a good and it's a very perceptive question. First of all, we don't consider ourselves elder. You know, it's either physically, you know, as George Burns, who almost made it to 100 actively, said, you know, being old is a state of mind. So, but thinking hierarchically is also a state of mind. So we just consider ourselves, it's like we're one family, and we're just here to help each other. That's really what community is spiritual friendship. And we don't think that we have any special hold on truth as like the top of the pyramid and everybody else is less wise than we are.
Between each other, there's a hierarchy.
Between each other. But that's usually when we're doing the crossword, who's the faster in the crossword that day. And I have to admit that it's generally not me. But anyway, we'll skip that hierarchy. But coming back, so we really don't consider ourselves kind of like at the top of the pyramid. So who do we rely on? We rely on our friends. When we have a question, there are many people that we might ask, or often it's not like a question so much, it's just bouncing things off each other and having a conversation and getting a different perspective. We're fortunate to have each other so that, you know, we can toss ideas around, get each other's perspectives. And sometimes, honestly, you just need to vent, you know? I don't know who Master vented with, but Swami would vent once in a while, and often he would vent with us, or you just need to, life has a lot of frustrations in it, where you hope something is going to happen, but the energy gets blocked. And sometimes it's helpful, not very much and not very often, but once in a while to vent. But you should do that with somebody who's positive, not somebody who's negative. You vent with somebody who's negative, and they reinforce the negativity. And you vent with somebody that's positive, and they say, oh, you're having a hard time. It's okay, it'll pass. And that was kind of condescending. They aren't that way. They're just there as a friend to listen and help you and offer a little, but it isn't like counseling, it's just friendship. And so we have lots and lots of spiritual friends. It's one of the great blessings. So, you know, probably many of the people sitting in this room, I've gotten help from in one way or another. And a lot of times it's just casual conversation, and you get a little boost of energy, or you get a little insight, or you have a nice exchange. Community, spiritual community, where there's the general understanding that you're mutually supportive for each other really is a magical help, because so much of the rest of the environment is the opposite, where any vulnerability is kind of pulled down. In spiritual community, you can open up and be vulnerable, and almost always the energy that you get back is supportive and upwardly directional.
And on another level, getting guidance is really a way of life, because we should always be referring inwardly to Master's presence within. So everything we say, you know, you just pause. I mean, not everything, like please pass the, you know, the salt, but anything that has some meaning to it, you just pause and you ask, Master, is this what you want? And what does that mean? We've heard people say, but for me it's like, I ask Master, how would I feel? How would you feel in my heart if I said that to that person? And if I feel just peace and calmness and positive energy, then it's okay. But if I feel a little unrest, uneasiness, then I think, no, that won't help. And same with things we do. The same with directions we take. You just to intuitively develop your own sense of alignment with Master, or with God, with Divine Mother, however form it takes for you. But intuitively try to feel that sense of rightness. And the more you do it, the more you feel it, the more you gain confidence in that. And then start on that level, and then you ask people you trust and who you feel comfortable with. Swami did it all the time. He would, because he didn't always have all the details about different things, so he would ask people in charge of different areas, you know, what do you think about that? Which course should we take? And it was training for us to realize it isn't, I'm in charge and I know everything, but just, we're doing this collaboratively. It's all, community is about cooperation and collaboration. And it isn't that, you know, Swami never played the role of I am omniscient. And, you know, we were just telling Shanti earlier, well, I'll share this story, it's personal, but I'll share it. When our son was a teenager, he went through a real rebellious period, and he was acting out. And Swami said, you should send him to a boarding school. He, I think he thought we weren't strict enough with him or something. And I felt in my heart, that doesn't feel right to me. And then we asked this couple who were directing the Ananda school at the time, who knew our son, we said, what do you think? And they said, our feeling is if you do that, you'll lose a connection with him forever. He needs you to go through this period, even though it's hard for everybody. That felt right to me. And we went and told Swami that, and he paused, and he said, that's right. Don't send him. So it was interesting how we did it together, and we came out with the right solution. So you start with an intuitive feeling of, and make sure it isn't motivated by self-interest. That's easy to do, and that's a pitfall. But if you're really trying to be objective and not having your own agenda, just help me feel what's right. And then you can ask other people that you trust and love. And then you get an idea. But it's really one of the great gifts of community and the spiritual path is to discover how to move forward in your own life to your own highest good and to the benefit of everyone around you. It's a lovely process, really. And I think it's why God gives us a lot of challenges so that we can we can develop our own intuitive perception and our own bonding with Guru Bhais. That was maybe more than you wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're done, you just stare, you pass it down the line.
One of the resources for Sunday service is Promise of Immortality. And I think I asked Swami every time I saw him if he was going to finish it, come up with the second 26 lessons. Is there any possibility that you all might complete that second 26 weeks?
Well, he did say often, not to us directly, but he said, that book needs to be finished, and I leave it to you all to finish it. We're going to be starting a new phase of our life, and Sai Ganesh didn't like that question, so he's taking the mic away from you.
Apparently it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't recorded.
Just,
Should I
why don't
repeat
you restate it, yeah.
Yeah, during the time that Swami was still with us, I would often ask him when he would finish the Promise of Immortality, and it just never happened. And this was at a time when I was giving Sunday service, most weeks, and it became one of the most important resources for me. And at the end of June, it would always,
You're on your own.
It was gone.
I'm right.
And so, the question is, who has the wherewithal, you two being sort of the prime suspects to, or the prime candidates, that's a better word, to finish something of that depth.
Well, I don't want to say never, but we have a lineup of books that we've been trying to get to. And in fact, some of you know, probably many of you know, but Devi and I are going to be taking an apartment in India. And we'll be there spending more time in India than we have up until now, at least 4, maybe 5, even up to 6 months a year. One of the things that we intend to do there is a lot more writing. Since Swami's passing, and especially since the time just pre-pandemic and then pandemic, there have been books that we have actually started on, but got stopped because of so many other demands, and we want to get back to those. So where does Promise of Immortality, Chapter 2 or Volume 2 live in that lineup? Probably somewhere farther back, because we have things that it feels like we've been guided to do. I'm wanting very much to get back to a book that I started on Ananda Seva. And I think it's really important. Master said that our path is a balance between meditation and service. And we have training courses and books and manuals and whole system for training in meditation. But we don't have any systematic training for how to serve and why. So I was inspired, and I felt divinely inspired after a trip to Brindaban, where we have a wonderful service project with a lot of widow mothers. I felt guided to do a book and probably a course or series of courses on seva, on service. So I'm trying to get back to that. So as I say, we have kind of things that we felt divinely guided as our responsibility. I must say at this point, I don't feel divinely guided to get to promise of immortality.
And the book that is on my horizon, in fact, we talked with Swamiji about it before he died, left the body, and I have a little interview on my cell phone from 2012, the last time we saw him. And, you know, Asha has written this wonderful book, The Light Bearer. I wrote a briefer book, which he requested me to do, Faith is My Armor. But this book would be, I don't have a working title yet, but it would be how Swamiji brought forward the different elements of Master's mission. So education, communities, spreading Kriya Yoga, enlightened leadership, success, and you know, all the different things that he just developed and themes that Master had laid out, but nobody else picked up on them. And so at first I was thinking how he completed Master's mission, but that isn't right. How he continued Master's mission in all these different areas. I have big box of notes and papers, but I just haven't been able to get to it. So that was from 2012 when he told us to do it. And anyway, so those are the things. And you know, then once you start writing, then you see where it goes. And that's why doing these weekly blogs, which are, you know, 2 pages or something, it's been really good practice, because I can tell from our writing now to when we started, we've gotten a lot better as writers, and in part it's because Lakshman, Swami's former secretary, is our editor, and we have learned so much about grammar from him, because he, you know, when I'm typing, I think, oh no, I know what Lakshman's going to do here, I can't do that. So anyway, let's see what happens. It's, you know, it's easy to talk about, it's not easy to do, but I think we'll have the time and the space to do it more easily when we're in India. Okay, next.
Namaste, Jyotish and Devi ji, Suman, and just so happy to have you here, and a joy to have this intimate forum, you know, to ask these questions. So there's been a quote from our masters that's been coming into my consciousness for the past few months, and it's something along the lines of, all time is wasted that is not spent seeking God, right? And I think we all understand about wasting time, whether it's, you know, zoning out with a mystery novel or Netflix or whatever it may be, but I find myself pondering that and really trying to understand, what does that mean in my daily life from a pragmatic level? You know, we all have responsibilities, families, careers, whatever, and those require goals and objectives that you have to work towards. But I just really find myself contemplating that. And then last night when you said, Devi, you know, if you may think you're treading water, but you're likely not. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. And that just, again, was like a light bulb for me. And I just really want to understand, I guess the question I'm asking is, how do we know that we're not treading water or that we're not wasting time, even though we are earnest and sincere in this path? But I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, do you want me to start or you start?
Well, maybe I'll offer a few thoughts.
That's a wonderful
Yeah,
question.
it's a very good
wonderful
question.
The questions are often better than the answers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Couple of thoughts. One is that let's split it into two parts. One is daily life, and the other is what Swami called fillers. So there's living your daily life, doing your duty. I know that you've, are you still caretaking? Yeah. So, you know, there are certain obligations that we have and are ours to do. And so those things, if they're given to us, then we need to do them. But the task before us in that case is to spiritualize that which we have to do. I'll give a couple of examples. Recently, meaning 2 or 3 years ago, I was watching some video from a talk from somebody at Ananda who sent me this, and I had to go to YouTube, and then on YouTube was, you know, they give you a whole series of things that you might be interested in watching, and there was this beautiful song, Shenandoah, and I listened to it, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful melody, but the words are not particularly inspiring. They're about a longing for a worldly love. But the melody was so beautiful that I rewrote the words. And then there was a beautiful, many of you were part of that, they sang it here for the first time. And it was very touching. But the reason I tell that story is that a lot of life has a worldly component, but a spiritual aspect to it. And so find in that which you need to do the spiritual aspect of it. One of the advantages that Devi and I have of writing a weekly blog is that we're constantly looking for material, because after 500, you don't have a whole lot that you spontaneously want to say anymore. You know, you've said it all. But so we need to constantly look at whatever is happening in life and see the spiritual lesson in that. And if you do that, all of life has spiritual lessons in it. So the stuff that you need to do, try to spiritualize it. And so that's step number one. Second, if you're trying to do that, just accept that you're trying to do it. One of the best, we've both run marathons. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got as a runner was somebody asked the question, how do you know that you're making a big enough effort when you're running? And the answer was, if it feels like an effort, it's an effort. And so if you feel like you're making a spiritual effort, if you just calmly look and say, am I making a spiritual effort? If you can answer that yes, you're not treading water. You're moving ahead, because even the desire to do that. So I would say that's for the big chunk of life of what we need to do, because that's what's on our plate. Then the other thing is the fillers, the Netflix, the mystery novels, the whatever. That we should try to minimize, because that is not helping us spiritually. But even that, let's not minimize it with a big load of guilt. Why do we do something like that? Because we're under stress and we want to back off for a little bit. And so it's to a certain extent, a coping mechanism. Now, a higher coping mechanism is to eliminate the internal resistance, but we aren't always there, you know? So sometimes it's nice. So I would say, if you're going to have a filler, try to have even the fillers have some redeeming aspect to them. So I probably shouldn't admit this in public, but I tend, when I want to relax, to read something in science fiction.
Erase that from the tape, please.
Yeah, erase that, yeah. We don't want to have to, you know, like when you bury the treasure, you have to eliminate the people who dug the hole. We don't want to have to do that with. But I tend to read science fiction. But I do that in part because often there's an interesting aspect to it. They're looking at consciousness or subatomic particles, or, you know, there's some, it's more thoughtful than just a mystery novel. And so I tend to, so there I try to, my fillers, I try to have some, at least the ability to rationalize that there was a redeeming quality to what I was doing.
And it's such an interesting and insightful question. And you can also look at it as a progression. How do you think of God, not waste time by thinking of God? Thinking of God isn't just doing a mantra or looking at Master's picture. It's keeping your consciousness elevated. And so it starts with meditation. It starts with the best effort you can make in meditation. And, you know, in the Gita, there's a wonderful passage where Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you know, offer your life to me. If you can't offer your life to me, then offer your service to me. If you can't do that, then offer, you know, it goes on and on. Offer, you know, and then finally it says, if you can't even do that, offer me your failure. And I noticed, I was trying to find that quote recently, and Swami changed it. I think he was working with different translations, because he didn't speak Sanskrit or read Sanskrit, and he changed it from failure, if you can't offer me at least a thought of me, bring me your intention. And I thought about that a lot. That's an interesting switch from failure to intention, because failure has a little bit of a sense of, give up here, I can't make this, can't make the cut. But intention means it's where I want to go. And so that's helpful. How do you not wait? How do you keep your mind thinking of God? It is my intention to do that. And then if you start in meditation, sincerely, over time, bit by bit, making your best effort, little by little, you start to feel your consciousness really just stays there. It stays in a higher state of consciousness. And from there, that's what thinking about God is too. It isn't just looking at a picture or chanting a mantra. So when you're serving your mother, if your consciousness is uplifted, if you're changing her bedding or whatever it might be, that's thinking of God too, if your consciousness is uplifted. And when you're taking time off, Jyotish mentioned crossword puzzles, we have our little routines that we do, but if you consciously do it, that's different than, oh God, what am I going to do today? Oh, maybe I'll watch this show. Now I am consciously going to take a half an hour and I'm going to read a book, or an hour and I'm going to watch it. And Lord, you do it with me. I do it with you. So bring conscious awareness into everything you do. Swamiji, when he was in residence at Ananda Village, very frequently at night, about 7 o'clock, he would call, "Would you like to come down to see a movie?" And we would say, "Oh, of course, Swami." It was usually either Bambi or Cinderella or Lady and the Tramp. That was sort of what he watched. But over time, and Dharmadas and Nirmala would often come too, Dharmadas said, and I realized he was right, he said, "I realized it wasn't about watching the movie. Swami was in an elevated state of consciousness, and he just wanted an excuse for us to be there with him." And if you would look at him, and I would do this sometimes, like watching Cinderella, he would be, his face was just blissful. And how could he be that blissful watching a little mouse caught in a mousetrap? You know, it wasn't about what he was watching. He was just in a state of bliss. And he was trying to get us to do that too. So whatever you're doing, if it is fillers, and we all need fillers. We can't be, and Karen asked the question, how do you keep going so much? We consciously, we don't, maybe we should, but we usually don't go on vacations, but we consciously in the day relax, disconnect from the problems, go for a walk. And when we go for a walk, we try not to talk about business or problems, just, oh, look at the trees or the squirrel or whatever it might be. And so it's living with conscious awareness is the answer. How to not waste time by letting your mind drift off. You know, and one other thing, and this is more for people with my temperament, like I know I embarrass all the people I travel with sometimes, but I just love to talk with people. And I'll just go up and talk with strangers. They don't seem like strangers to me. And I'll just start a conversation and have so much fun. And Jyotish is sort of
Gives
like
me the shudders.
He's just not, he's more inward. But, and you have the most wonderful experiences. Once, and I'll close with this story, I was wanting to buy, we have 3 grandchildren. I was wanting to buy a little game for them that we could play over the holidays. For those of you who know Apples to Apples, it's a little board game. And I went all over Nevada City. I couldn't find it. Nobody had it. So this was around Christmas time. So the stores were all crowded and busy, and the lines were long. And I had one last stop to make at the drugstore. So I went to CVS, and I was and you know, it was the end of the day, and all the lines were very long. But there was one line where there was a young, clearly a young single mother with a little child who was totally out of control, screaming and screaming. And the poor mother was trying to figure out how to pay for it and didn't take that credit card. It hurt your heart to see that scene. So I just got behind her in line, and I just stood there, and not to be obvious about it, but I was just praying, sending peace and calmness and light around her. And little by little, the child calmed down, and she found her credit card, and she checked out. And I had my eyes semi-closed, and then it was my time to go up. And I opened my eyes, and there on the counter was a box, Apples to Apples, right there. And I said, "Can I buy that?" And the woman said, "Yeah, somebody else took it, and then they didn't want it." Honestly, but so there you are in a checkout line, Pray for the people in front of you. Pray for the people behind you. Pray for the couple arguing in the next row, You can always be doing that. And then it was like Divine Mother saying, "Thanks for helping that lady and her child. And here's a little Christmas present for you." It was so sweet.
If you aren't checked out in the checkout line, then Divine Mother's there too. Which reminds me of a good joke. So, a grandfather and the grandson are in this big supermarket, and the grandfather is the grandson says, "I want to go, I'm tired." And the grandfather says, "Just 5 more minutes, William, 5 more minutes, and then we'll be in the car." And next aisle, I want that. "No, you can't have that. Just 3 more minutes, William, 3 more minutes, and we'll be done." Then they're in the checkout line, and the kid's whining again, and the grandfather says, just one more minute, William, just one more minute, then we'll be in the car and we can go. And so they're leaving, and this woman said, I've been observing you working with your grandson, and I'm so proud that you've had such patience with your grandson, William. He said, oh, no, ma'am, you misunderstand. I'm William.
I have to tell another story. This is actually a true story. It didn't happen to me, but I read about it, about checking out of stores. So, true story. A man was going into, I don't remember where it took place, but it was during a hot summer, and it was a big parking lot. So a man parked his car, and he's going towards the store, and he sees a woman sitting in the driver's seat with her hands like this. And he's a little puzzled, but he doesn't know the lady, so he keeps going, buys his things, come out, and the lady is still sitting like that. And he said, ma'am, are you all right? And she said, call 911. I've been shot in the back of the head and my brains are coming out. And if I put my hands down, they'll come out. And he doesn't know what to make of this. True story. And so he goes and he gets the police, and they said, lower your hand. No, I can't lower my hands. I'm holding my brains. Finally, they open the car. And she, in the back of her hot car, had a tube of like Pillsbury dough, biscuit dough. And in the heat, it exploded, and it hit her in the back of the head. And so she had this dough on the back of her head, which she thought was her brains, and she was holding it like that. And anyway, we told that to somebody, and we said, what do you do after that? And they said, move to another town and change your name. Anyway, true story. So the moral is don't put frozen Pillsbury biscuit dough in the back of your car. Okay, there must be another question after this.
There's somebody to bring us back to sanity again.
Do you all know Pooja from Portland? Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Oh, you
Pooja.
live here part-time, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So my question also was kind of in line with Suman, that the friendship and relationship with Divine is the main goal we came here for, but we do everything else, and a lot of other things rather, doing that. But when we go through our life and during the day, we do so many things, including Netflix and everything.
Can you hold the mic a little lower?
Lower?
Yeah,
Because,
that's good.
otherwise we can't.
Is
hear.
it better?
That's better.
Yeah.
Do I repeat again?
Yeah.
Okay. So the main job we came here for is to realize who we are and make our relationship with the divine. But we have to do different things for doing different things other than that. Or some things are related. But during the day, sometime, because we do so many other things, we kind of have a moments that feels unbearable, that I cannot go beyond any farther. This is just the unbearable moment. So I think that because we need to spend more time with God, or consciously recognize that those are the points, time, moments that we have spent with Him, because we overlook those moments sometimes. So what is your advice that during the afternoon or evening, sometimes after watching a lot of videos, though they are good videos, cooking videos or anything, but I see and working for a long time. I think that time I should have meditated, but I'm not sure that how do I detect those points, and how do I develop the habit of, instead of going into the panic mode, just have a time of meditation.
Well, during the day, we can't keep the conscious part of our mind on God all the time. We have to focus. And Master addressed this. He said that it's important to meditate in the mornings and the evenings, It's important to try to remember God throughout the day, but it's not realistic to think, oh, my mind should always be on God, because we have to focus on whatever we're doing. So a couple of things are important in this. One is that the conscious mind is only a small part of our being. So to a certain extent, the subconscious part of our mind should be relating to God. And Devi talking about how Swami changed it from failure to intention, offer Krishna your intention, is really important, because the intention generally resides below the surface of the conscious mind. And so keep your intention of finding God strong. And then you can do that in a couple of ways. One, Swami suggested that we should, at the end of each day, review the day and see how things went. Well, review the day, and then if you get into the habit of saying, well, maybe I wasn't focused on you, Divine Mother, but I wish I had been at that. So the intention, you keep that, one might say, growing the intention of moving toward the divine, stronger and stronger. What that does is that it, Master talked about mental citizens. Well, there are a lot of, think of a crowd of 1,000 people. Well, the conscious mind can see the front row, but all the other rows are the subconscious mind behind. If you get those subconscious citizens moving toward God, that's in many ways more important than having the conscious citizens. So it wouldn't be right to, at the end of the day, to say, well, I forgot to concentrate my conscious mind on God while I was trying to do this task at work, so therefore I'm a spiritual failure. That isn't right or realistic. Keep your intention toward finding God. And so in reviewing the day, you can go back and kind of re-spiritualize the day, and that'll help train that subconscious part of your mind so that in succeeding days, that intention to be aligned with God is stronger. Then along with that, try to add in things like when you're in a little dilemma, not knowing how to proceed, train yourself just to stop and say, Master, guide me here, or Divine Mother, guide me here. So that there are little touchstones throughout the day. But as I say, it's not realistic to think that you're going to be consciously thinking of God all day long. The way Ramakrishna put it was charming. He said, the mother cow always knows where the calf is, but she's busy eating grass and chewing her cud, but she knows where the calf is. And so that part of your mind should know where the divine is and always have a little bit of a paying attention in that direction. But it isn't your conscious act or your conscious focus.
Yeah. And I'll add as well, there's a story that Master would tell of a very sincere devotee who every morning he would get up quite early before work and he would meditate for 3 or 4 hours and then be chanting and then go on to work and then go about his daily life. And Satan is looking down and he said, I'm going to interrupt this fellow. He's showing too much positive energy towards God. So he sends down one of his henchmen and he says, let him oversleep so he doesn't get up in time to do his turn off his alarm clock so he doesn't get up in time to meditate. And so the alarm clock doesn't go off, and the man wakes up, and it's time to go to work. He hasn't meditated, and the whole day he's thinking, oh Lord, I didn't meditate. Lord, forgive me. And Satan looks down and said, wake him up early tomorrow. When he would get up on time, he would only think about God for 3 or 4 hours. But this time, he thought about him all day long. So, in other words, we can't, it's the intention to keep the mind moving in that direction. And just to realize that it's a long journey. And if we can see God in everything we do. And another important thing is God is present when we are doing our very best at whatever we're doing. If you're cooking a meal, try to make it, don't just say, oh, it's good enough. Try to make it as good as it can be. I mean, not obsessive compulsive, but just, does it taste right? No, it needs a little more of this. Or if you're having a conversation with a friend and you feel your energy isn't as nice as it should be, then you express divine love and friendship. So I remember the first summer I was there, I was asked to answer letters. I'm going like this, typing. Answer letters to people who are writing into the community. I shared this story at another occasion. And so in those days, it was typewriters before computers. And I was not a good typist, and so I made many mistakes. And there was something called whiteout, which you would put on there. And Swami happened to be walking through the office, and he looked at the letter I was answering on the typewriter, and he looked at me and he said, that's terrible. You can't send that out. That needs to represent Ananda, what you send out. And so I tried much harder to make it look good and good answers. And so whatever you're doing, I mean, if you're a high-level tech person, try to do it not with compulsion, not with pressure, but just the best you can. Give life the best that is within you in every act of service. And God is there present in that as well. So it's nice. Prakash, one of the men that lives at Ananda Village, said once he was helping Swami, they were building Swami's dome, and he was over there helping, and he was sawing some lumber that was pretty deep and took a lot of effort. And he said Swami stood behind him, and he was doing it, and then Swami came and stood behind him, and he said, all of a sudden I felt my mind just, whoa, totally focused. And he said, I was sawing with such precision I had never before. And he said, I tried for the rest of my life to do everything I did with that kind of concentration and precision. So again, not with nervousness or anxiety, but just with focused mind and energy. And if you can do that in sawing a board or, being in an incorporation, then when you come to meditation, you're already there. And then it's a cycle, because if you can do that in meditation, which is easier, then when you do your daily life, you say, okay, same energy, same focus, same concentration, just bring it to bear on what you're doing. And that's how Swami was able to accomplish so much, that focused, concentrated, self-offered awareness. And it's beautiful to behold. And it's a path to God.
Okay, there's another question. We'll try to be shorter in our answers because we're down to like 15 minutes. Okay.
Remember to hold the mic about chin level.
Remember to turn on the mic.
Yeah, that too.
Thank you both for being here. I'm reading a book right now. It's called What We Owe the Future, and it's a philosophy book. And one of the central themes in this is that we have an obligation, both sort of in the physical world and also in terms of our dharmic actions to those who have yet to be born, to a world that is yet to come. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts around what we should be doing, and I'm going to maybe say on the physical side of things. You tip your hand a little bit, Jyotish, with your notion around seva, and because that's never been as clear to me as sort of our spiritual notions of that are not so physical. This notion of self-realization. So I guess my question is, what does an Ananda yogi owe the future?
Very good question. First of all, it's very perceptive. Yes, we're just moving through this planet for a little space of time, and we have an obligation, each of us individually but collectively, to leave this place a better place than when we came in. Now, I really strongly believe that no lasting change can happen without an upliftment of consciousness. So the most important gift to the future is what we're trying to do to uplift consciousness, both individually and to help others do the same. How that translates into physical things, if you look at Ananda Village, which is, one might say, the living laboratory of trying to live with higher consciousness. It's beautiful. It's mainly solar powered. Most of the people are walking whenever they can rather than driving. The animals are loved and gentle. The land is taken care of. So we take that higher consciousness and express it in all the physical ways that we can think of. And yet you have to be somewhat practical. We live in a certain age, and out in the country it would be unrealistic not to have cars. So we have to have cars. There's some carbon footprint to that. But do the best you can. But the most important thing is to raise consciousness, but it is also important to express that raised consciousness in practical ways that leave this world a better place on a physical level, as well as on a social and spiritual level. And I think we're doing as well as we can with that. Given the circumstances that we have to do. So satsang, coming together, is really important for that, because you can support each other in helping.
And you have to respond to the needs of the time too, even though you're building for the future. For example, we mentioned this wonderful work in Brindaban that Ananda has, where we're serving thousands of homeless widows and animals and wandering sadhus. It gets bigger and bigger. But in a certain way, we've gotten from high officials in India just so much recognition for that work, more than the teaching yoga and meditation. And so then, but could we do that in America? No, it isn't the same social need. But look, we need to be responsive to needs in our time, in our environment, and respond appropriately to them. So it starts with raising consciousness. It starts with living our life as dharmically as we can, with as much integrity and honesty as we can, sharing energy and what we have, resources, with others. But I think it's important what you ask, and forgive me, I know we've known you for many years, Robert, thank you. I couldn't remember your name, even though I know we've shared a lot of conversations together. But to be aware that Ananda is a harbinger of the future, what we're doing, the World Brotherhood community movement, and I know brotherhood is, it's not the right word anymore, but nevertheless, it's what Master said. But this movement of spiritual communities is the future. That's what Master said. He said there will be the social pattern of the next age, of the coming age, of the future. So whether it's in an urban or a rural environment, it's not different. And so a lot of it is less the form than the conscious awareness. I am trying to do something to contribute to the future. And I think most of Master's disciples, on some level, feel that, accept that, know that, yeah, what we're doing seems like a drop in the bucket. Swami often would use the example of the Renaissance in Florence, Italy, where, there were really maybe 20, it was not a big group of people, maybe 20 great artists that influenced the art of the whole rest of Western civilization. Just a small handful of very focused people. And they knew they were ahead of their time, but there was a grace that came that through their effort, it opened their eyes, and it opened the eyes eventually of all of the Western world. And I think it's true for us. It's like, if we're aware that what we're doing is not for ourselves, but it's for the future, we get more insight about how to do that, how to help the future, and the benefit to society at large will be very important. But I have felt it since the first day I met Swami Kriyananda. When I mentioned last night, if you were there, that there was, I know you were, but there was this wind that I felt, this movement of energy. And Ananda is a movement of energy blessed by the grace of our gurus, empowered by them. And as we, hearkening back to, I think Karen's question, the more we just get ourselves out of the way and just jump into the stream and just say, this is why I came. And you don't want to end your life saying, what was that all about? You want to end your life saying, I did the best I could. I think I brought some help to the world. And I think I was part of this great mission that Master came, and our line of gurus came to bring to the world at this time. So
I think there are other questions. We should
Oh,
move on.
okay.
We're almost out of time.
okay,
I don't know that I need the mic. Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
But I think for the
But they need to
recording.
record it.
Sorry. In that case, thank you both so much for coming down and blessing us. Okay. This is a question I think is becoming more and more important in the Ananda world. There was a medical fellow who many of us here have worked with who spent his life alleviating pain and suffering. Some time ago, he wound up with throat cancer. His throat was closing. He was in agony. He scheduled an assisted suicide. It did not feel, knowing him, like a rejection of reality or I don't want to face this or learn this. It was a relief of suffering. Can you talk a little bit about both your feelings and anything Swami might have said when it's a circumstance like that and it's not denying a lesson that we have to come back next time to learn?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a question on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, we're getting that same question from other people also. And it's a very important one. There are levels to it. First of all, our teachings do not support taking one's own life. That's just what it is. So the best thing is to understand that whatever comes to us for a reason, which would include pain and suffering at this point. So there would be a burning off, maybe a mass burning off of karma through that pain and suffering. Now, that's on an ideal level. Not everybody lives on an ideal level, nor do any of us always live on an ideal level. So we also don't want to send out a lot of message of guilt for people who may feel that they have done everything they can. They simply can't continue to suffer at this level, and they've decided to end it. And as you say, it's not really a life rejection, it's a rejection of pain rather than a rejection of life. And I think the karma is relatively minor for that. We had an incident, a woman in the community who had severe mental problems. I think she would be today diagnosed as schizophrenic. And she really tried.
She was a visitor, she wasn't a member.
Yeah, she stayed there for a few months, but she wasn't a member. But she really tried, we tried to help her, and then she moved on. And then later we all heard that she had committed suicide. And Swami didn't condemn her at all. He just said, I think she did the best she could in this lifetime for that personality, and it's a blessing for her to be done and be able to come again. So I don't think we can support the idea of assisted suicide or intentional ending of life, but I don't think we should condemn it very strongly. But I think you have to look at it with discrimination. If a person is not putting out enough willpower to overcome their challenges and gives up, that's a whole different thing. We read that a terrible statistic that a third of teenage girls have contemplated suicide. And so that's a kind of societal madness, and we can't somehow send the message that we support that. But in extreme cases, like you know that life is ending soon in any case, and you just can't stand the pain, then give it to God and do the best you can. That's
and just to add briefly, it depends on the level of awareness of the person. Many of you know about Joe Hunt, Jairam, who has been in prison for nearly 40 years now for a crime he didn't commit, and now he's having severe health problems. And his sister, a lot of pain, his sister told us that he said, I was in so much pain, and the only way I could get through it was I thought, this is how God is loving me. And he said, when I did that, I could bear it. So it depends on the level of consciousness of the individual. And I think for those of us as Kriya bonds, I think to think in terms of assisted suicide I wouldn't recommend it, because we have the tools to deal with it. And we understand that Master is taking on a lot of our karma anyway, and he's pulling us forward. But if someone like this woman, Swami gave her the name Mohini, God's dream, I think it was. What does Mohini mean, do you know? An Indian friend? Oh yeah, that's right, enchantment or something like that, yeah. I think she was so heavy and dark, I think he was trying to raise her consciousness. And she wasn't a Kriya bond, and she was mentally imbalanced, and she didn't have the strength to do any better. And so Swami didn't want to judge her or want us to, so he said that was the best she could do. But the question we all need to ask is, am I copping out, or can I put out more focus and surrender to God and Guru? So it's not black or white. Okay, well, if you have any more questions, you can ask. Anybody want to raise their hand? No, I'm teasing. I think we'll just end it here, and we'll see you. I hope we'll see you at 3:30 at the art exhibit.
Yeah, I hope you come.
And,
We're going to explain the paintings and some of the philosophy behind it. You'll enjoy it.
And maybe we could end. I hope I don't embarrass you, but that was so beautiful, Sarani. Just maybe Shanti has an announcement, but maybe you could end with that chant.
I just have to make a quick announcement first. You know, and something just came to me that I wanted to share. For years now, literally, I have had this thought that we would find a better and better and better way for supporting the presence and the dissemination of Jyotish's art through this center. And we haven't been able to get a hold of it. And then, of course, the idea came to bring some of his art here. And I know it would take a lot of effort on a lot of your parts because you're here for this morning session to come back at 3:30. But I'd just like to say, when Devi was sharing earlier the story of Swamiji inviting them down many nights, as she said, to watch Bambi, Cinderella, and
Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp. But it was a sharing of consciousness that wouldn't sound new to us. But it really came to me that being around Jyotish's art, which is beautiful, you'll see. If you see it, many of us have. It's so much more than that, though. Here we are, all feeling so appreciative of their presence in our lives. I can feel it here. I felt it at the village. We're blessed to have Jyotish and Devi. And that art is one way that Jyotish has of putting his consciousness, and of course, Devi's too. They're just in the best way inextricably wrapped up their consciousnesses, and she supports that art fully and totally. So of sharing their consciousness, of welcoming it, even if you don't buy a piece of the art. It's not really just about buying it at all, but it's about absorbing the consciousness of rising to meet it. So I just wanted to encourage everybody to consider coming back. We have this opportunity of having not just the art, but the artist and our spiritual directors with us to share about it. So please consider coming at 3:30 for each of our good and sake, and in an effort to uplift the consciousness of everyone around us through that. So
Thank you. You know, Swami said, if you want to understand me, listen to my music. And to a certain extent, my paintings have more of me in it than my talking does. And I'll tell the story and I'll explain some of the symbolism that is there that you'd never realize was there in a painting. I'll explain what's going on spiritually in that painting as an expression of I don't know, the divine search is what they're all about. But anyway, I do hope you'll come. I don't want to make it a pressure thing. It should be for enjoyment. And as Shanti said, it's not about buying a painting. It's about, having a chance to appreciate something other than verbal communication at a different level.
So maybe we just have a little chant and then we'll end. Is
Yeah,
that
but we have to have that chant.
yeah.
She wants the mic in front of you, is that okay?
Sure. I've got a mic, so you get the mic in front of you and we get the mic in front of us. Okay. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me, wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me, wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. I am thee, Lord, I am thee, thou art me, Lord. I am thee, Lord, I am thee, thou Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. I am thee, Lord, I am thee. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. I am thee, Lord, I am thee. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thou art me, Lord, thou art me. Wind and air, Lord, wave and sea. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. You know, we have different bhavs in the different chants we sing. This I wrote specifically, as I said, we were teaching this course, and people were talking about aspiring and, oh, how hard it is, or how the search is difficult. This, if you listen to the words, they simply affirm a state of realization, not a desire to get somewhere, the realization that you're already there. Thou art me, Lord. I am thee, Lord. I'm the wind, and you're the air. I'm the wave, and you're the sea. But instead of an affirmation of aspiration, it's an affirmation of having arrived. But every chant has a slightly different bhav, which is why it's nice to have so many of them.
Thank
Okay.
you all. We'll see
We've
you.
held you too long already.